"Hey, sweetheart, why don't you wiggle that cute little behind over here and give us some real service?" sneered Tommy Kozlov, the foreman of the construction crew, slapping my rear end as I carried coffee to their table at Rosie's Diner. "We've been working hard all morning, and we deserve some special attention from a pretty little thing like you. What do you say we discuss this after your shift ends?" His four companions erupted in crude laughter, making obscene gestures and comments that would have made a longshoreman blush. What these rough construction workers didn't know was that the helpless little waitress they were harassing was Maria Francesca Romano, daughter of Vincent the Don Romano, head of the most powerful crime family in Brooklyn. And in about 30 minutes, when my father's men arrived for their usual Tuesday lunch, these disrespectful laborers were about to learn that some people are protected by forces more dangerous than any union contract. My name is Maria Romano, and this is the story of how a quiet Tuesday afternoon in 1978 became a lesson in respect that echoed through the construction industry of New York City for decades. I was 24 years old then, a college graduate who had chosen to work as a waitress at Rosie's Diner in Bensonhurst to stay connected to the neighborhood where I grew up, despite my father's repeated offers to set me up in more suitable employment. Most customers who saw me in my pink uniform and comfortable shoes had no idea that I was the beloved daughter of one of the most feared and respected men in organized crime, or that disrespecting me was tantamount to signing their own death warrant. Growing up as the daughter of Vincent Romano meant living in two worlds: the legitimate facade of a successful businessman who owned restaurants and construction companies, and the shadowy reality of a man whose word was law in the streets of Brooklyn, and whose protection extended to everyone he considered family. "Maria, mia cara," my father would tell me in his heavily accented English, "you are the most precious thing in my world. Anyone who hurts you, hurts me. And people who hurt Vincent Romano don't live to regret their mistakes." The decision to work at Rosie's Diner, despite my family's wealth and connections, was both an act of independence and a way to maintain contact with the ordinary people of our neighborhood who formed the foundation of my father's power and influence. "Papa, I want to earn my own money and understand how regular people live," I had explained when I announced my intention to take the waitressing job. "I can't spend my whole life being driven around in limousines and eating in fancy restaurants. I need to know what the real world is like." My father's response had been characteristically protective and slightly disapproving, as he worried about my safety and the potential for someone to recognize me and either seek favors or attempt to harm me to get to him. "Maria, the world is full of wolves who would love to hurt an innocent lamb like you," he said with the mixture of tenderness and steel that characterized all his interactions with his family. "But if this is what you want, then you will have it. Just remember that you are never truly alone, even when you think you are." The protection my father provided was invisible but comprehensive, as several of his associates had jobs or businesses along the route I traveled to work, ensuring that I was always under discreet surveillance without feeling imprisoned by security measures. Tony Benedetti worked at the gas station across from the diner, Sal Marconi owned the barber shop 2 blocks away, and Jimmy the Fish Torino delivered bread to restaurants throughout the neighborhood, all of them keeping watchful eyes on Vincent Romano's daughter while maintaining the illusion that I was living an independent life. The harassment from construction workers wasn't unusual in 1978, when most men felt entitled to comment on women's bodies and make unwelcome advances without fear of consequences or social disapproval. But the crew working on the apartment building renovation project across from Rosie's Diner had been particularly aggressive and persistent in their attention, making each workday increasingly uncomfortable and stressful for me and the other female employees. "These guys think they own the neighborhood just because they're building something here," complained my coworker Susan Martinez as we prepared for the lunch rush. "They come in here acting like animals, grabbing at us, making disgusting comments, and treating us like we're here for their entertainment. I'm getting tired of pretending to smile while they disrespect us every single day." The escalation that occurred on that particular Tuesday was both predictable and infuriating, as Tommy Kozlov and his crew decided to assert their dominance over what they perceived as helpless working-class women who had no recourse against their harassment. "Hey Maria, you've been avoiding us lately," Kozlov called out as I served other customers. "That hurts our feelings. We're good customers who tip well, and we deserve better treatment from the help around here." His use of the word help was deliberately insulting, designed to emphasize what he saw as the class difference between successful construction workers and lowly diner employees. But what Kozlov didn't understand was that in my world, respect was not determined by job titles or paychecks, but by blood, loyalty, and the protection of powerful men who took personal insults very seriously. The physical harassment that followed was both brazen and stupid, as Kozlov and his men seemed to believe that their size, numbers, and working-class solidarity made them untouchable by anyone who might object to their behavior. "Come on, sweetheart, don't be so unfriendly," Kozlov said, grabbing my wrist as I tried to clear their table. "We're just having some fun. Unless you got a problem with working men who know how to appreciate a beautiful woman." Before you continue this incredible story of respect, family loyalty, and street justice, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales about ordinary people who discovered they had extraordinary protection and changed their world by demanding the dignity they deserved. "Let go of me right now," I said firmly, pulling my wrist free and stepping back from their table. "I'm here to serve food and drinks, nothing else. If you can't treat me and the other staff with respect, you need to find somewhere else to eat." My attempt to establish professional boundaries was met with cruel laughter from all 5 men, who clearly viewed my resistance as entertainment rather than a legitimate request for decent treatment. "Listen here, little girl. You don't get to tell us how to behave," Kozlov snarled, standing up to tower over me in a clearly intimidating display of physical dominance. "We're paying customers, and if we want to have some fun with the waitresses, that's our business. Maybe you need to learn some manners about how to treat men who work for a living." The threat in his voice was unmistakable, and I could see the other customers in the diner becoming uncomfortable with the aggressive behavior they were witnessing. But what these construction workers didn't realize was that their victim was not as defenseless as she appeared, and that some families had ways of handling disrespect that went far beyond filing complaints with management or calling the police. "You have exactly 5 minutes to apologize and leave this diner," I told them quietly, my voice carrying a certainty that seemed to surprise everyone present, including myself. "After that, your behavior becomes someone else's problem to solve." The calmness in my voice was inherited from my father, who had taught me that true power never needs to shout or make threats. It simply states facts and allows consequences to follow naturally. The laughter that erupted from Tommy Kozlov and his crew at my ultimatum was loud and mocking, filled with the confidence of men who believed they had found an easy target with no protection or recourse. 5 minutes? Kozlov repeated incredulously, slapping the table in amusement. "Or what? You gonna call your daddy to come save you? You gonna cry to the manager about the mean construction workers who hurt your delicate feelings?" What they didn't notice was the black Cadillac that had just pulled up outside the diner, or the 4 impeccably dressed men who stepped out and surveyed the scene through the large front windows, with the practiced eyes of professionals who had spent decades protecting the Romano family's interests. "Actually," I said with a smile that probably looked more predatory than friendly, "I think my family is about to explain to you why treating people with respect isn't optional." The front door of Rosie's diner opened with deliberate ceremony, and Salvatore Big Sal Torino walked in, followed by 3 of my father's most trusted associates, men whose reputations in the neighborhood were built on loyalty, efficiency, and the kind of problem-solving that left lasting impressions on people who crossed the Romano family. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees, as 4 men who commanded respect through presence and reputation surveyed the confrontation taking place at table 6. Big Sal was 6'4", and 280 pounds of muscle earned through decades of enforcing my father's will, with steel-gray eyes that missed nothing and a presence that made smart people reconsider their life choices. The expensive suit he wore couldn't hide the power that radiated from every movement, and the bulge under his left arm suggested that he was prepared for any situation that might arise. "Good afternoon, Miss Maria," he said, with the formal courtesy that characterized all interactions with Romano family women. "Is everything all right here?" The construction workers' bravado evaporated like steam from a broken pipe as they realized they had been harassing the daughter of Vincent Romano, a man whose name was spoken with either respect or terror throughout the 5 boroughs. Tommy Kozlov's face went pale beneath his hard hat as he recognized the faces of men he had seen in newspaper crime stories and neighborhood whispers about people who had simply disappeared after crossing the wrong family. "Oh, Jesus," whispered one of the younger construction workers. "Do you know who that is?" The casual arrogance that had characterized their behavior just moments before was replaced by the kind of fear that comes from realizing you've made a potentially fatal mistake. They had violated one of the most fundamental rules of neighborhood life: never disrespect a made man's family. Big Sal's approach to their table was unhurried and deliberate, like a natural disaster that moves slowly but inevitably toward destruction. "Gentlemen," he said in a conversational tone that somehow managed to be more intimidating than shouting, "I understand you've been having a conversation with Mr. Romano's daughter. I hope it's been a respectful one, because Mr. Romano takes a very personal interest in how his little girl is treated." The leader of the construction crew tried to salvage the situation with nervous apologies and false bravado, but his voice shook as he spoke. "Look, we didn't know she was connected, okay? We were just being friendly, you know, having some laughs with the waitress. No disrespect intended to anybody." His attempt to minimize their harassment only served to make Big Sal's expression more dangerous. "No disrespect intended?" Big Sal repeated softly, his voice carrying the kind of quiet menace that made experienced criminals nervous. "You put your hands on Mr. Romano's daughter. You made crude comments about her body. You threatened her when she asked you to behave like civilized human beings. And now you're telling me no disrespect was intended?" The transformation in the diner's atmosphere was immediate and palpable, as other customers began quietly paying their bills and leaving while Rosie herself disappeared into the kitchen, understanding that whatever was about to happen was family business that civilians shouldn't witness. The construction workers found themselves surrounded by men who had spent decades handling problems for one of New York's most powerful crime families. "Please, we're sorry, okay?" pleaded the youngest member of the construction crew, who couldn't have been more than 22. "We didn't mean anything by it. We were just joking around. Can't we just apologize to the lady and forget this whole thing happened?" His fear was genuine and pathetic, but it was also too late to matter in a world where respect was currency, and disrespect was debt that had to be paid. "Sorry doesn't fix disrespect," explained Carmine. The Hammer Benedetti, Big Sal's lieutenant, and a man whose nickname came from his preferred method of delivering messages to people who needed attitude adjustments. Sorry is just words, and words don't mean nothing when you've crossed lines that shouldn't be crossed. Mr. Romano's daughter asked you to behave like gentlemen, and you chose to act like animals instead. Tommy Kozlov made the worst possible decision by reaching for the tool belt that contained a hammer and other potential weapons, apparently believing that construction tools might give him an advantage against professional enforcers. It was a mistake that demonstrated just how completely he misunderstood the situation he was in, and the caliber of men he was facing. Big Sal's hand shot out with surprising speed for such a large man, grabbing Kozlov's wrist and applying pressure that made the foreman scream and drop his hammer before it cleared his belt. Now that was definitely the wrong choice, Big Sal said with genuine satisfaction. Mr. Romano always says that when people show you who they really are, you should believe them the first time. The lesson that followed was swift, professional, and educational rather than lethal, as my father's men demonstrated the difference between playground bullies and serious people who had built their reputations on the willingness to back up their words with decisive action. This is what happens when you disrespect Mr. Romano's family, Big Sal explained to the groaning construction workers as the lesson concluded. This is what you'll remember every time you think about putting your hands on women who don't belong to you. The cleanup that followed was efficient and thorough, as the construction workers were escorted outside and given clear instructions about their future behavior and their continued employment in the neighborhood. "You boys are going to find new jobs in different parts of the city," Big Sal informed them as they nursed their bruises and contemplated their mistakes. "And you're going to tell everyone you know that Maria Romano is off limits to anyone who values their health and their family's well-being." The message that went out through the construction industry's informal networks was clear and unambiguous. Vincent Romano's daughter worked at Rosie's diner. She was under the protection of the family, and anyone who bothered her would answer to Big Sal and his associates. "Word travels fast in our business," Carmine explained to me later. "By tomorrow morning, every construction crew, truck driver, and laborer in Brooklyn will know that you're not to be touched or even looked at sideways." The immediate aftermath was both satisfying and educational, as I realized that the protection I had always taken for granted was more comprehensive and more feared than I had understood. The comfortable bubble of safety that surrounded me wasn't just my father's love. It was his power, and that power had consequences for anyone who threatened his family's dignity or safety. The changes in how I was treated at work were immediate and dramatic, as word of the construction workers' lesson spread throughout the neighborhood faster than gossip at a church social. Within 24 hours, every regular customer, delivery driver, and passerby knew that Maria the waitress was Vincent Romano's daughter, and that knowledge transformed every interaction I had during my shifts at Rosie's diner. "Maria, honey, you never told us who your family was," said Mrs. Castellano, an elderly customer who had been coming to the diner for years. "If we had known you were Vincent's little girl, we would have made sure nobody ever bothered you. Your father is a good man who takes care of the neighborhood, and his daughter deserves the same respect we show him." Her words reflected the complex relationship between organized crime families and the communities they both protected and controlled. The construction project across the street was quietly shut down within a week, as the company that had employed Tommy Kozloff and his crew discovered that their city permits had suddenly become problematic, and their supplier relationships were experiencing unexpected difficulties. "Sometimes business problems solve themselves," my father explained when I asked about the coincidence. "When people show disrespect to my family, they often find that their other relationships become complicated as well." The conversation I had with my father about the incident was both enlightening and sobering, as he helped me understand the world I had been born into and the responsibilities that came with being a Romano. "Maria, you wanted to live like a regular person, and I tried to give you that," he said during one of our evening talks. "But you are not regular people. You are my daughter, and that means something in this neighborhood. It means protection, but it also means obligations." The marriage proposal I received from Anthony Benedetti, son of one of my father's oldest associates, came just 2 months after the diner incident, representing both a romantic opportunity and a strategic alliance between families. "Tony is a good boy from a good family," my father said when Anthony formally asked for permission to court me. "He understands our world, he respects our traditions, and he would protect you with his life. But the choice is yours, cara mia." The decision to leave the diner and accept a position in my father's legitimate business enterprises was difficult, but necessary, as I realized that my attempt to live independently had put other people at risk and created complications that affected the entire family's operations. "I learned what I needed to learn about the real world," I told Rosie when I gave my notice. "Now I need to learn about my own world and my place in it." The wedding to Anthony Benedetti in 1979 was a neighborhood celebration that brought together legitimate businessmen, family associates, and hundreds of residents who viewed the Romano family as protectors and benefactors rather than criminals. "Today we celebrate the union of two good families," my father said during his toast. "Anthony, you are receiving the most precious gift I can give. My daughter's happiness and safety are now in your hands." The children Anthony and I raised, 2 sons and a daughter who grew up understanding both their heritage and their responsibilities, learned early that power should be used to protect the innocent, rather than exploit the vulnerable. "Mama, why did those construction workers think they could be mean to you?" my youngest asked, when she was old enough to understand the basics of the story. "Because they didn't understand that disrespecting women has consequences," I explained. but they learned. The legitimate businesses I helped manage, restaurants, construction companies, and real estate ventures, provided employment for hundreds of neighborhood residents while also serving as fronts for the family's other activities. "Maria has a good head for business," my father would tell his associates. "She understands that making money legally is always better than making money illegally, as long as you have the power to protect what you've built." The charitable work I became involved in, supporting local churches, funding scholarships for neighborhood children, and helping families in crisis, reflected the Romano family's role as unofficial community leaders who took care of their own. "Your father may be many things," the parish priest told me during one of our fundraising meetings, "but he never lets his people go hungry or homeless. That's more than we can say for most politicians and business leaders." The evolution of my understanding about my family's activities was gradual but inevitable, as I learned to separate the violence and criminality from the genuine community service and protection that form the foundation of their power. "We do what we have to do to survive and protect our people," my father explained. "The world is not fair, cara mia, and sometimes unfair worlds require unfair methods to achieve fair results." The next generation of Romano family members, my children and their cousins, grew up in a different world than I had known, with more legitimate opportunities and less need for the old ways of solving problems through violence and intimidation. "Times change, and smart families change with them," my father said as he watched his grandchildren pursue college educations and professional careers. "But the principles remain the same: family first, respect always, and protection for those who cannot protect themselves." The diner incident became family legend, a story told and retold at gatherings and celebrations, as an example of how respect must be demanded and maintained, regardless of the circumstances or the cost. "Your mother faced down 5 construction workers who thought they could intimidate her," Anthony would tell our children. "She stood her ground because she knew that some things are worth fighting for, and that bullies only understand strength." Looking back on that Tuesday afternoon in 1978, I understand that the confrontation at Rosie's Diner was about much more than a few construction workers behaving badly toward a waitress. It was about the importance of family protection, the reality of power in urban communities, and the truth that respect is not automatically given, but must be earned and maintained through strength. The Romano family gave me something that money couldn't buy and education couldn't provide: the absolute certainty that I would never face danger alone, that disrespecting me carried consequences that extended far beyond personal confrontation, and that my father's love was backed by the power to enforce it. "In our world, family is everything," Papa always said. "Everything else, money, business, respect, comes from protecting the people you love." The young woman who was harassed by construction workers in 1978 learned that day that she was stronger than she had known, more protected than she had realized, and part of a community that would never allow her to be victimized without swift and decisive retaliation. Sometimes the most important lessons come from moments of crisis, and sometimes discovering your own power requires seeing what happens to people who mistake your kindness for weakness. The legacy of that day lives on in the respect I earned from people who witnessed my courage, the love that deepened between my father and me through shared trials, and the understanding that in some neighborhoods, justice is not something you wait for. It's something your family provides when the regular world fails to protect the people who matter most.